79. Rune 95. Shire of the 75. Moth 53. Guardian. Rune Shire of the Moth Guardian. Sounds like a fun adventure to me. Let's get into this. Welcome to Solitary RPG. In this video, we're going to talk about Tome of Adventure Design, the revised version by Matt Finch. Now, this book has been reviewed on lots of YouTube channels, and when I first learned about this book, I went out and purchased it. This is my copy of it, and came from Frog God Games. Originally, this book came out in 2009, and then a newer version was republished in 2011, adding a little bit more content to it. But it does show its age, especially with how all these charts are made. And it's just cram-packed with information for creating adventures. But it was never really my go-to book. I don't know. I just didn't like the layout. It just didn't work for me. This version of Tome of Adventure Design is actually what the author originally wanted the book to look like. And it is now truly a tome because it's 511 pages long. And when we open it up, the charts are laid out a lot nicer. It's a lot more appealing to me, especially my eyes, without all the heavy black line charts and tables and graphs. It just reads a lot easier. And what you're going to notice in the new revised version of it are all these words on the side of the pages. And these words, it's amazing. The author even went as far as putting the words to the very last page, which is 511, even in the index. I just like that touch. It just shows how much the author really wanted this concept to be kind of the forefront of this revised version of the book. And it is because of this that I actually purchased this copy. It was $55, and I'll put a link in the description below if you want to pick up a copy. But this is the result of a Kickstarter. So I don't know how many copies the author has available to sell at the moment. So if you are interested, you may want to pick it up as soon as possible. It is a fake leather hardcover type book, and let's go through and show you how this book actually works. It's going to open up with a little bit of information talking about the book itself and how to use it, but it's broken down into 4 chapters. Chapter 1 is going to be your starting point. You're going to get a couple pages of text talking about adventure design, some general principles, going through all the different elements that make up a good adventure. And then you're going to get these location charts. And at the beginning of the video, you saw me rolling on the tables, and I came up with Rune Shire of the Moth Guardian. And this is just kind of a general concept, a general idea. Now, this is listed as Approach 1. And Approach 1 actually has 2 charts that you can roll on. You got this chart A, and then you come over here and you got chart B. So you just have 2 of the same types of charts, which give you 4 different elements to create your story. The way I approach these charts is I'll roll on them 3 or 4 times until I get that combination of words that just really get me going, get my creativity going, and I'm just excited about it. And sometimes even I'll roll maybe 1 or 2 on this chart and then come over here to chart B and roll 1 or 2 and just really start mixing things up to create my kind of my location and what my adventure is going to be about. So that's how you start. And this is like your 1,000-mile view. I look at this as kind of creating a title. Like this would be the title of my adventure. And then we'll start diving into a little bit deeper. If this approach is too much, though, there is a quicker approach, which is approach number 2, which you just roll twice, and you just get 2 words, and then you kind of create everything from that. And what's neat is when you're rolling on these charts, and you roll something, and it just isn't sparking that creativity. Your brain just kind of seizes, locks up. You're just stumped. A lot of times, what we talk about for solo gaming is you just roll on the chart again. Well, now you have this reference that you can just start looking at these words and trying to unlock your creativity by using these little spark words. So that's what I like about this book. It's very creative by doing this. I've never seen this in other books, the way it's laid out here. And I like to reward creativity. That's why I purchased the book, because I just think this is very cool how the author created this. So that's approach 2. And then after you're done kind of getting your big concept, your big picture, you're going to start looking at the missions. So these charts change a little bit on how you're going to use them. So we have Runeshire of the Moth Guardian, but like, why would our adventurers want to go there? What's the purpose to them as an adventuring party or adventurer to risk their lives to go to this location? Well, you got missions. This is the motivation that's getting your players to go someplace. What you can do is you can roll on this chart here. This is a small chart, which is 4 results. But what they'll do is they'll take you to other charts to create, your mission. You got like individual missions for items, locations, or events. So you just roll here and then you go there. Now, if you already have an idea as, the person running the game, you can just pick which one you want to go to. And then you can actually create a patron. Who's hiring you to do this? Who's getting you to go out there and do this type of stuff? This is where you get the longest table in this book. Different types of patrons to choose from. And it's actually a D1000 chart. So you basically have 1,000 different types of careers and leaders and things that would hire your adventurers to go do something. But this is what gets you going, get your PCs, motivated, and then you kind of create your patron. What's their motivations, some hooks, some different things like that for the patrons. And then we create our villains. I really like this because I like creating villains. Again, you're going to roll on this chart, and this is going to give you your motivation for your villain. And then you're going to go to the chart in this section to roll additionally for creating that villain. Some of these results might take you to other tables, but this is the basic concept. You're rolling on a main chart. It's taking you to some other charts to continue developing that information. This is really a game all by itself. You can just sit down and start rolling on these tables and just creating adventure ideas, adventure seeds, creating really cool villains, backstories. But there's no name generators in this book. This is really just giving you a sketch of an adventure that you would come back and fill in those details with the volumes of other random books of tables in your collection that you might use. So once we're done with the basic concepts, the next thing is to create some monsters. Like, if we're going to go on an adventure, we need that boss monster, that big encounter at the end of the adventure. We have a chart we're going to roll on. This is going to be something that will take us to another chart so we can flush out what that big monster is. I like the way this is done because what you're going to do is you're going to get one of these type of monsters, and then your charts are going to be kind of more specific to that monster, kind of making it cohesive, making sense with what you're rolling on, and you're not getting some random like dragon creature with branches for arms. Like, you're going to get kind of structured monster encounters that make sense and everything kind of works out. Now, some of the stuff is a bit wonky, but that's what makes playing these games so much fun. So yeah, you create monsters now, and you just keep all this information is about all the different monster types and all the charts you're going to roll on for creating those monsters. And it's a lot of fun, and I've created some really cool monsters. Then we're going to get to chapter 3, which is dungeon design. And this is not just all dungeon dressing and room descriptions. This is really kind of going back to the beginning of the book when we talked about adventure design, and we had some general information about how to create an adventure. You're just revisiting that information, but you're doing it for your dungeon. So a lot of the information in here is about making an adventure in a dungeon to where it's not just kicking down doors, killing goblins, searching their pockets for gold. This is actually giving your adventurers more of a reason to be in the dungeon and their motivation, and making it more of an adventure. And I like it. Sometimes smash and grabs are fun, but it's not what you always want to do. Part 2 of this chapter gets into the dungeon, designing the dungeon adventure, and it's just going to start diving into all kinds of useful information, examples, and everything you would need to really flush out your dungeon. And it's just good stuff, and it will get you into a little bit of dungeon design or dungeon dressing as you go through it and start looking at everything. I do like that they've included alternative alphabets that you can look at for maybe putting some marks on walls and things like that, just to give a little bit of a dressing. And this part here about how to kind of map out your dungeon, instead of like trying to draw out a really cool graphic dungeon that you see all the YouTube channels doing, especially with Dungeon 23 taking place right now. It's just circles and squares and lines. Keep it simple, keep it easy. I like this. It almost reminds me a lot of mind mapping, which is something I do, and I just find it fun. But here, we get into some of the mapping concepts and more of the dressing and room sizes and different things that we can put into the rooms. And this book just keeps going on with dungeon information that you can just really create a cool adventure in a dungeon. And I understand why this is probably the biggest part of the book, because let's face it, for fantasy gaming, we're in dungeons a lot. It seems to be where we go. Yeah, we do city adventures and things like that, but there's a lot that can happen in a dungeon. A dungeon is a world all by itself. There's so much going on in a dungeon, and you can have so much fun inside of the dungeons. And I think that's why it gets so much attention here in this book. This is where you can pull random tables if you just need something to add to your gameplay. But for the most part, this book isn't something you're going to have beside you as your main source of random tables. It has useful information, but this is really about the pregame. This is about setting up the adventure, getting everything written down, having your concepts in place so that you can start your adventure. And then the last chapter is non-dungeon adventure design. So here we're going to get into just some, city adventures or underwater adventures or wilderness adventures. You got different ideas here, concepts you can work with. You have a small chart you can roll on, and then these small charts take you to other tables, and you just start rolling on these other tables and just kind of flushing it all out. And you're just getting ideas on the tables. And like I said, if you get stuck, if you lock up, you can start looking at all these words on the sides to kind of free your imagination and get you moving again. So this is what I really enjoy about this book. Then when you get to the end, you get to a list of tables. So this just lists out all the different tables. So if you're looking for a very specific table, you've got a list. And then after that, you'll come to your traditional index, where if you got a word in your head of like, I need a whatever, you can try to find it through using the index. But yeah, 511 pages, and now this feels like a tome of adventure design. It is a big chunky book, and it is a nice book to have in your collection, and I just really am having a good time with it. And it's just, you can just play this as a game. You don't need to actually go on the adventures. You can just sit down and just roll up stuff for an hour or so and just have a good time with it. If this book looks interesting to you, please check the description below and check out the link and see if it's something that you want to purchase. Thank you for watching, and have a good day.